Hey guys, this is Crap Hunter, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Woo! And welcome to patch 9.1 test server. Huzzah! Yes, we are back on the test server, and yeah, this is kind of as usual, like I did in the last episode of the test server. This episode's going to be more focused on talky, so I'm going to highlight all the new content and my opinion of them, and basically what's new in this patch. And then the second half of this video will be dedicated to the actual fighting on this one. So all you action-hungry people will be happy to note that in this patch there isn't that much content to talk about that I'm going to be in this one. So this one video should, fingers crossed, be slightly shorter than usual. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So, what is new in patch 9.1? Well, not much, as I just said, but I have put a little list of the most obvious features that are new in patch 9.1 that we're going to be talking about in this particular half of the video. But as usual, I will put a link in the description of the vehicle, kind of also to remind myself to do it as well, of the actual full patch notes as well. So that way, you guys, if you really want to find out the itty bitty gory details, they are there for you. So yeah, the little list I've compiled are as such. We've got a new map, an urban map, called Kharkov. I'm not entirely sure if I pronounced it correctly. I probably haven't, so feel free to correct me in the comment section. So we've got a new map called Kharkov. We've also got some new historical battles, which is pretty nice. If we go to the historical battles feature, as you can see, the first two battles, which was originally the Battle of Kursk and the Battle of the Bulge, have now been replaced with the Siege of Tobruk and the Bryansk front. Unfortunately, Operation Spring Awakening is still there, so unfortunately there may be some scum-sucking leech bags who will just go onto there to earn money, but what can you do? But at the same time, this is pretty cool. The Siege of Tobruk, it's nice to see that they're focusing a little bit more on the earlier stages of the war, and not all just focus on America, Russia, and Germany, which used to be how World of Tanks was at one point. But no, it's nice to see that they're doing it, and also it's nice to know that if you're a newer player to World of Tanks and you wanted to try historical battles, you now actually have a chance to, without having to go all the way to like tier 6 or 7 before you can have a shot at it. In, for example, Siege of Tobruk, the highest tier tank you'll get for the Germans will be at tier 4, which is the Panzer IV-D, and the Stug B, Stug B, and for the British you'll have the Matilda and the Valentine, and the highest tier would actually be the Crusader, so you're actually one tier up than the Germans, which is pretty nice. I do like that. And then of course you got the Bryansk front, where you get the highest tier for Germany is the Stug G, Panzer IV H, and KV-1, which is the Russians, and the T-34. So that's pretty cool. I mean, for me though, I'm not entirely fussed on historical battles. Having played War Thunder, I'm just sorry. War Thunder arcade in War Thunder is already historically accurate, so I'm not really too fussed about historical battles. And unfortunately, I don't think it'll be too successful either, as when in 9.0 historical battles were released, not many people really played them much, if any. So whether or not this feature will work out, I'm not entirely sure, and sadly I fear it may not even work out. Anyway, moving on. The last biggest feature of this list, as I told you, there isn't much in it, is a new awards scheme. Well, a new awards for actions in the field, and this one is actually a little bit more in favour of artillery players. This one, in the honorary ranks file first, is this one for counter battery fire. In a battle, destroy all enemy SPGs, at least 3, with an SPG. So basically you've got to kill all of the enemy SPGs. Now that one I reckon will be pretty hard to get. I mean, depending on, obviously if you're playing as an artillery player. I don't play artillery much. I think I played it like once when I was still learning the game. So but I reckon that'll be quite hard to get. This one I reckon will be even harder, cold-blooded. This basically means that you need to destroy 2 enemy light tanks from a distance of not more than 100 meters. You need to be driving an SPG of at least tier 4. You must not destroy any allied vehicles and can only be attained in random battles only. As with this one, no, you gotta just not be a team killer. So that's really you know, artillery is already inaccurate, so for them to have to knock out a light tank at 100 meters and to destroy 2, that's probably going to be hard. Quite hard. As for epic medals, artillery now has its own epic medals. At least I have not noticed them before. Which is this one, the Gore's medal. Drive an SPG and cause damage 10 times more than your hit points. You must not destroy any allied vehicles. Hits on allied vehicles are not counted and can be attained in random battles only. Basically, what it's saying is you've got to go into you've got to be an artillery player and completely annihilate your opposing forces. Now that's going to be difficult, I can tell, but I reckon that's more achievable in some aspects. That could be good. That's definitely achievable. This one's probably going to be the big one. The Stark's medal. While driving an SPG, destroy at least 2 enemy vehicles and receive at least 2 enemy hits that cause damage or are blocked by armor. So I suppose this is the artillery version of Spartan. Now, if you haven't played Spartan, if you're not sure what that one means, it's basically take a lot of hits and be very low health, but somehow survive. And lastly, for the awards, there is now 3 commemorative tokens which focus a little bit more in team battles. This one being God of War, driving an SPG and be the last survivor and win the battle, so that's kind of cool. Rock Solid, while driving an SPG, destroy an enemy vehicle by ramming and survive. That's probably going to be quite odd, but anyway. I'm not so sure why they talk about the speed, but whatever. And finally, No Man's Land. Now this one I reckon will be quite a quirky one, but I don't know how often it will be achieved. Probably not much. But in a battle, draw where both teams kill themselves. Now, as where both teams die, it is possible for that to happen. However rare, but still, that's a pretty nice feature. Though the likelihood of that happening is very low. Right, so that's all of the content of this patch. Now let's get to the bigger parts of this patch. This patch is more focused on fixing the problems from patch 9.0 and balancing a couple of things. One of which I'd say is a can of worms, potentially, and the other is... the other one is actually quite nice. But we'll focus on the fixing first. Now, as for fixing, as I just said, all the things that in this game is patched primarily for sorting out the problems in the patch 9.0 went completely tits up. So they're fixing the lag, they're fixing the crashing to the desktop, they're fixing the lag spikes, and while I do appreciate this, I'm also going to put the question of the video in this as well, is I'm not entirely sure. I mean, like I said, I'm on the fence with this one. On one hand, I'm extremely grateful that they're doing it, because when patch 9.0 came out and there was loads of, lag issues, me taking forever to get back onto the server, loads of problems. I think in the mini patch of the other video that I've uploaded today, returning back, I think it is, or something like that, I note that it's a lot better than it used to be. But at the same time, I wonder whether this really is necessary. Like, it kind of feels, and comment if you agree/disagree, like a bit like modern game releases. For example, very famously, Battlefield, where when the game was released, it was very laggy. There was internet problems. There was, loads of really laggy and glitchy things in the game, and it required the game in a sense didn't really become stable until like however many months after its release. Now, that, to me, sounds kind of shitty, and it kind of felt like that when patch 9.0 came out. It was the big patch. Everyone wanted to see what the new kind of gameplay was. And then all of a sudden, the game was as unstable as a freaking schizophrenic with a shotgun. So, it really put me off playing this game, because I think, well, hang on a second, Wargaming have been doing patches and playing this game and doing this game for so long. How could they make such a colossal mistake? But anyway, I digress. So in this patch, they are now going to be fixing lots of the issues. And like I've just said, question-wise, do you agree with this? Do you think that it's a very good idea that patches, are for fixing stuff is a great idea? Or do you feel a bit like me, that while you appreciate that they're dedicating a lot of resources into this, should they have really should they have put themselves in this position in the first place, sort of thing. The second thing, going on to the balancing side of things, I'll go on to the can of worms first before I go on to the good stuff. Because the good stuff may make this video slightly more positive. In patch 9.1, if you haven't heard already, they are going to be changing the way that tank destroyers work to a majority of extent. To explain this, basically in combat, because of foliage, when you approach a foliage and say, for example, a heavy tank, you're moving up to the foliage and you spot an enemy tank. Now, even if you reverse slightly backwards to an extent and fire through the bush, your camo rating when you fire through the bush will drop quite significantly if you're in a heavy tank, and it varies whether you're in a light tank or a medium tank. But generally speaking, as soon as you fire at someone, you will be spotted and the enemy will start to shoot back. Now, before patch 9.1, tank destroyers with much better guns than heavy tanks and much better, just generally much more accurate, much more devastating, and much more effective guns than the equivalent tier heavy tank, could quite happily go into the nearest bush and sit there for probably the majority of the game, taking pot shots at people. For example, this one in particular is quite famous for it, the Borsig Waffenträger. And basically, they could dominate a whole sector without the enemy being able to see them. And this was really annoying to some people. However, what Wargaming are going to be doing in this patch is they're going to be changing the way that this works so that tank destroyers, pretty much I think all tank destroyers now, will have the same amount of camo rating drop as heavy tanks, medium tanks, light tanks. So that this means that tank destroyer players will now have to be extra careful when firing at opponents, because now their opponents can see them / react better to them, which is a good thing. I mean, I am a TD fan / so I'm not, I don't really mind too much. I think it's a good idea. But the bit where I think it's a bit of a can of worms scenario is that they've listed on the patch notes all tank destroyers non-premium. So basically what they're saying is all the tank destroyers, like for example the ISU-152, the SU-152, will suffer the same kind of problems with the camo rating drop, but the SU-122-44, nope, you're not going to lose any camo rating when you fire, pretty much. Your SU-100Y will not lose its camo rating. Like, it'll basically be the same before patch 9.0, so 9.1. The Jagdtiger 88, the E25, which is a nimble little bugger, the Dicker Max, that won't suffer any problems when it comes to losing its its camo rating. There isn't any TDs for the French, is there? No, there is. The FCM Pack 40 will not lose its camo rating. So, well, obviously, I guess it's because if you've paid money for a tank, you expect a little bit more than just a tank in the middle of a game. But this also kind of seems a bit like a cash grab from my eye, to get, I mean, obviously, Wargaming need to earn their pennies, but completely changing the way the camo method works, or the camo drop works for non-premium members, I can imagine that could possibly have a nasty, that could probably piss off a fair amount of non-premium players who either can't afford to play World of Tanks with premium tanks, or choose not to because they don't want to spend money on this game. It could probably be quite, well, it could probably seem like it's a very much a pay-to-win scenario. But as I said, this is what I have just read, what I read in the patch notes. So this could be up to speculation. They might change it when the game when the patch is actually released. So it's not entirely. It could completely change. But at the moment, it looks like that's going to be what's going to happen in patch 9.1. So that's not the greatest of things, but oh well. Now, moving on to the last feature of this video. Told you it was going to be a bit of a quick one. The new balancing of lighter scouts, which is actually quite nice. What Wargaming are going to be doing now is they're going to be rebalancing how lower light scouting actually will be. They said from tier 4 to 7, light tanks will have their matchmaking rebalanced, which is awesome. I quite like this because it means now certain tanks, like a good example will be for the Russian tiers, the A20, which is a light tank, and it does receive some rather nasty matchmaking, will actually now finally be able to only see tier 5 matchmaking at most, because it says that basically I think the A20 loses on the patch notes. It says that the A20 will lose 2 tiers of matchmaking, which is brilliant, because that means now that when you're driving through and when you're grinding up the tech tree, so for example, like I just said with the A20, when you're grinding through the Russian tech tree, you're a new player, you have no idea what it's like to be at tier 6 or 7. Now you don't have to worry about being put into a match with an IS or a KV3 or, God forbid, an SU-152, and you can actually enjoy playing this game a lot more than you would normally to get to your famous T-34. And I'm hoping they do the same for the Panzer 38 NA. I mean, before they decided to add a new medium line list towards the Panzer 4H, of which I would recommend to get through that line before you get up that line, because this one gets scout matchmaking still. But beforehand, I was really kind of miffed at the fact that the Panzer 38 NA would be put into such unfair matchmaking that, despite it being a scout, it was just not built for this kind of combat. So it's nice to see that you actually are given not only given a different style to getting to the Panzer IV, you might now actually be able to be in a matchmaking which is not completely unfair against the Panzer 38 NA. And I quite like this feature. I'm definitely happy to see that certain things like this is coming up now, because it gives then newer players and earlier scout players who want to learn a bit more about scouting without having to go into the pit of fire before, getting up to the higher tiers. At least now they can, get good practice on it and also go up against perhaps equally skilled opponents. So that's it for this half of the video. I hope it was quicker than usual. Should be. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this, guys. To reiterate the question of the video, do you like what is in this patch? Like what this patch primarily focuses on? Do you agree with what Wargaming are doing with regards to fixing stuff? Or are you like me, where you kind of think, well, it's great to have it fixed, but should we really be in this position in the first place? Or do you feel that this is the absolute last straw, that Wargaming can go screw themselves with a number of sharp implements, and that you're going to get rid of your account and go straight to War Thunder or whatever? Anything like that at all, feel free to let me know. Also about the can of worms, I'm going to slip the TD part as well in there, because I don't know whether that's going to be official or not. Don't forget, this is a test server. Things are liable to change. So anything like that at all, feel free to put in the comment section down below. So thank you very much for watching this half of the video. If you like this kind of content, do feel free to let me know by typing in the comment section down below, clicking on the like button, and of course subscribing to the channel. If you yourself are a YouTuber or a player of this game, or a YouTuber who plays this game, feel free to let me know if there's any kind of way I can improve my performance, if I can commentate better in some aspects, do more in others, do other stuff, anything to improve the overall gameplay. Any feedback like that at all, please feel free to put it in the comment section down below. So thank you very much for watching this, guys. This is Crap Hunter signing out, and I will see you in the combats phase of the next video.